Welcome to the channel Rare Coin Finder, and imagine for just a moment that you're cleaning out an old dresser drawer, sorting through pocket change your grandfather left behind decades ago, and your fingers brush against a coin that feels slightly different from the rest, heavier maybe, or with a strange shine that catches the light in an unusual way. You pick it up, turn it over in your palm, and notice the date, 1997, a Kennedy $50. Most people would toss it back into the jar without a second thought. Maybe spend it on a vending machine snack or hand it to a cashier as part of exact change, never realizing that this particular piece of metal, this seemingly ordinary coin stamped with the profile of America's 35th president, could be worth an absolutely staggering $210 million. Yes, you heard that right, $210 million for a coin that was minted less than 30 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans have probably held in their hands at some point. A coin that might be hiding in your collection right now. But what could possibly make a 1997 D Kennedy $50 worth more than the GDP of some small nations? What secret does this coin hold that transforms it from 50 cents of face value into a fortune that could set up your family for generations? The answer lies in a combination of factors so rare, so extraordinarily unlikely, that only a handful of these coins exist in the world today, and collectors, serious, wealthy collectors who treat coin hunting like a high-stakes treasure hunt, are willing to pay absolutely mind-blowing prices to own one. The 1997 D Kennedy $50 was struck at the Denver Mint, indicated by that small but crucial D Mint mark positioned just below Kennedy's neck on the obverse side of the coin. And while the Denver facility produced Kennedy $50 that year, they weren't released into general circulation the way coins from previous decades had been. By the 1990s, $50 had essentially disappeared from everyday commerce, relegated to collector sets and special mint packages rather than cash registers and piggy banks, which immediately makes any $50 from this era uncommon in pocket change. But the truly valuable 1997 D specimens, the ones commanding those astronomical 7- and 8-figure prices, are coins with extraordinary errors, mistakes so dramatic and visually striking that they become instant legends in the numismatic community. We're talking about double strikes where the design was stamped onto the planchet twice in misaligned positions, creating a ghostly doubled image that looks almost three-dimensional. We're talking about wrong planchet errors where a $50 die accidentally struck a planchet intended for a different denomination, producing a Kennedy $50 that's the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong metal composition. We're talking about broadstrikes that occurred when the collar die failed to contain the metal during striking, allowing the coin to spread beyond its intended diameter, and creating a piece that's larger and thinner than normal with an unmistakable irregular edge. And then there are the truly bizarre specimens, coins that somehow escaped the mint with missing clad layers, revealing the copper core beneath like a secret exposed, or coins with dramatic die breaks that create raised metal lines across the surface like lightning frozen in silver, or even the holy grail of errors, a mule coin struck with mismatched obverse and reverse dies never meant to be paired together. Each of these error types is rare on its own, but when you combine multiple errors on a single coin, or when an error occurs on an already low mintage issue, the value multiplies exponentially, reaching into territory that seems almost fictional. The condition of the coin matters tremendously as well. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC examine every microscopic detail, assigning numerical grades from 1 to 70, and a 1997 D Kennedy $50 graded MS-70. Meaning absolutely perfect with no imperfections visible even under magnification, would already be worth thousands of dollars even without errors. But add a dramatic minting mistake to that flawless preservation, and you've created something that auction houses dream about, something that brings out bidders from around the world, each determined to claim ownership of a piece that represents the pinnacle of error coin collecting. Stories circulate in collector circles about someone finding a 1997 D Kennedy $50 in a bankroll and recognizing the telltale signs of a major error, about estate sales where boxes of old coins contain specimens worth millions, about the person who nearly spent one at a gas station before noticing something odd about the way the design looked. These aren't just coins. They're lightning strikes of luck, moments where chance and value intersect in ways that change lives forever. The Kennedy $50 series itself carries enormous historical weight, first minted in 1964 just months after President John F. Kennedy's assassination, designed to honor his memory and capture the nation's grief in silver and copper nickel, and every subsequent year has continued that tradition, keeping Kennedy's profile in production long after half dollars ceased being practical currency. The 1997 issue came during a period when the mint was experimenting with production techniques, when quality control protocols were being updated, when the transition to modern striking methods sometimes created unexpected opportunities for errors to slip through despite sophisticated inspection systems. And here's something that should make your heart race. Because half dollars weren't circulating widely by 1997, many people who received them in change or found them mixed with other coins simply set them aside without examining them closely, which means right now, at this very moment, there could be 1997 D. Kennedy half dollars worth millions sitting in dresser drawers, safety deposit boxes, old coin albums, estate collections, even junk drawers where people toss random pocket change. The coin you ignored for decades might be the coin that funds your retirement, pays off your house, sends your kids to college, or makes you a legend in the collecting community. But before you rush to check every half dollar you've ever seen, you need to know what to look for, the specific characteristics that separate a common coin from a record-breaking treasure. Examine the mint mark first, making absolutely certain that D is present and clearly struck, because Philadelphia coins without mint marks have different values, and Philadelphia didn't even produce half dollars for circulation in 1997. Then scrutinize the overall appearance. Does anything look doubled, misaligned, or irregular? Hold the coin at different angles under bright light and watch how the design elements catch and reflect. Errors often reveal themselves through unusual shadows or unexpected textures. Check the edge carefully, looking for the telltale reading that should encircle a normal half dollar, because broad strike errors produce smooth edges that feel completely different. Weigh the coin if possible, because wrong planchet errors will be noticeably lighter or heavier than the standard 11.34 grams. And if you spot anything unusual, anything that makes the coin look different from other half dollars you've seen, stop. Do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, do not try to improve its appearance in any way, because collectors and grading services prize original, unaltered surfaces, and even well-intentioned cleaning can destroy thousands or millions in value. Instead, store it carefully in a protective holder, photograph it from multiple angles, and consult with a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication and evaluation. The 1997 D. Kennedy half-dollar market is active and growing, with auction records being shattered regularly as new specimens emerge and as collectors who missed earlier opportunities enter the market with deeper pockets and fiercer determination. Major error coins from this year have sold at prestigious auctions like Heritage and Stack's Bowers, where bidding wars push prices far beyond pre-sale estimates, where collectors on the phone compete against internet bidders and floor attendees, where the gavel finally drops on amounts that make headlines in numismatic publications worldwide. And here's the thrilling part. We're just getting started. If you thought $210 million for a 1997 D. Kennedy half dollar was shocking, if you're already wondering whether you might have one hiding in your collection, just wait until you hear about what comes next, because we're about to reveal coins that are even more mysterious, even more valuable, coins with stories that will make this one seem almost ordinary by comparison. So don't you dare click away now. Don't even think about skipping ahead, because the journey we're taking together through the world of rare Kennedy half dollars is only beginning. And what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. I'm talking about errors so bizarre they shouldn't exist, values so high they defy logic, and stories of discovery that prove beyond any doubt that fortunes are still waiting to be found by anyone smart enough to look closely at the coins passing through their hands. Keep watching, stay focused, and get ready to discover that the next coin in our lineup carries secrets that make even this $210 million specimen look like pocket change. Next, the 1989 D. Kennedy half dollar. And just when you thought the story of valuable half dollars couldn't get any more intense, just when you were catching your breath from learning about that $210 million 1997 specimen, we're about to take you even deeper into the rabbit hole of numismatic treasures with a coin that pushes the boundaries of believability even further. A coin minted 8 years earlier that somehow commands an even more staggering price of $214 million. That's right, $214 million for a Kennedy half dollar struck in 1989 at the Denver Mint. And before you think this is impossible, before skepticism creeps into your mind, understand that we're dealing with error coins so phenomenally rare, so catastrophically unusual, that their very existence represents a perfect storm of circumstances that should never have aligned but somehow did. Picture this. It's 1989, the Berlin Wall is about to fall, the Cold War is winding down, and deep inside the Denver Mint facility, massive presses are stamping out Kennedy half-dollars with mechanical precision. Coin after coin after coin flowing through production lines that have been refined over decades to minimize mistakes and maximize consistency. But machinery, no matter how sophisticated, remains vulnerable to unexpected failures, human oversight, and those bizarre moments when multiple systems fail simultaneously in ways that create something absolutely extraordinary. The 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar that reaches into nine-figure territory isn't just rare. It's a coin that experienced such a catastrophic minting error, such a dramatic departure from normal production, that experts examine it with a mixture of awe and confusion, struggling to understand exactly how it could have escaped every checkpoint and quality control measure the mint had in place. We're talking about errors that combine multiple dramatic mistakes on a single planchet. Imagine a coin that was struck off-center by such an extreme degree that portions of the design are completely missing while blank planchet shows prominently. Then somehow that same coin went through the press again at a different angle, creating a second strike that overlaps with the first in a chaotic, almost artistic display of misaligned imagery. Or consider wrong planchet errors where Kennedy half-dollar dies came crashing down onto planchets meant for completely different coins. Perhaps a quarter planchet, creating a half-dollar design compressed onto a smaller, lighter disc, or even more bizarrely, a foreign planchet that somehow infiltrated the production line, resulting in a Kennedy half-dollar struck on metal intended for Canadian or Mexican coinage. The variables are almost endless, and each combination creates a unique piece that cannot be replicated, cannot be faked convincingly, and cannot be valued using normal price guides because there's simply no comparable precedent. Condition plays its usual critical role. A 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar in lower circulated grades might be worth face value or perhaps a few dollars to a collector building a date set, but that same date in pristine, unopened mint set condition already carries premiums, and when you escalate to professional grades of MS-67, MS-68, or the nearly impossible MS-69 and MS-70 levels, you're looking at coins where every detail is razor-sharp, where the fields shine like mirrors, where not even the tiniest contact mark or hairline scratch interrupts the flawless surfaces. Now layer a major error onto that perfect preservation, and the value doesn't just increase, it explodes into stratospheric territory that makes conventional collecting seem quaint by comparison. The 1989 issue holds special significance in Kennedy half-dollar history because by this point, half-dollars had been completely withdrawn from circulation for general commerce, produced exclusively for collectors in mint sets and special packaging, which means the mintage numbers were already relatively low compared to the billions of cents or even the hundreds of millions of quarters being struck annually. Denver's production that year focused on satisfying collector demand, and the striking quality was generally excellent because these coins weren't destined for the harsh environment of circulation where they'd be dropped, scratched, and worn down through countless transactions. This careful handling means that when errors occurred, they often survived in better condition than errors from earlier decades when coins immediately entered commerce and suffered damage. But here's where the story gets absolutely thrilling. Because production numbers were limited and because most 1989 D half-dollars went directly to collectors who stored them carefully, the population of these coins is well documented, which makes the appearance of a major error specimen even more sensational because it represents something that slipped through despite heightened scrutiny. Imagine being the collector who ordered a mint set in 1989, set it aside for years or decades without closely examining each individual coin, then finally opened the sealed packaging to discover that one of the Kennedy half-dollars inside exhibited an error so dramatic, so visually obvious, that even a novice could recognize something was drastically wrong and wonderfully right with this particular coin. Stories like this aren't folklore or wishful thinking. They're documented discoveries that happen regularly enough to keep every serious collector hoping their next purchase might contain hidden treasure. The authentication process for high-value error coins involves submitting specimens to professional grading services where experts examine every aspect under high magnification, comparing die characteristics against known examples, analyzing metal composition through non-destructive testing, and ultimately encapsulating authenticated pieces in tamper-evident holders with certification labels that document the exact nature of the error and the preservation grade. For a coin valued at $214 million, this authentication becomes even more rigorous, potentially involving multiple expert opinions, detailed photography that captures every angle and feature, and provenance research that traces the coin's ownership history back as far as possible. Auction houses specializing in rare coins treat these specimens like museum pieces, featuring them prominently in catalogs with full-color photographs and detailed descriptions, promoting upcoming sales through numismatic publications and online platforms, and sometimes even touring valuable lots to major cities before the auction to generate excitement and attract serious bidders. When a truly exceptional 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar error comes to market, the event becomes headline news in collecting circles, with predictions about final hammer prices, speculation about which famous collectors might bid, and post-sale analysis of what the result means for the broader market. And these sales aren't just transactions. They're theatrical events where decades of passion, knowledge, and financial resources converge in minutes of intense competitive bidding that determine ownership of something genuinely irreplaceable. But let's bring this back to you, because while $214 million seems like fantasy money reserved for wealthy collectors and investment funds, the path to discovering such a coin starts with ordinary people doing ordinary things. Sorting through inherited collections, checking bank rolls, examining coins received as change, or simply paying attention when old currency passes through their hands. The 1989 D. Kennedy half-dollar you need to find might be sitting in a drawer right now, might be mixed in with other coins in a jar on your shelf, might be part of an old mint set your parents bought and forgot about. The key is actually examining coins instead of assuming they're all common and worthless, taking the time to compare what you have against images of known errors, and trusting your instincts when something looks unusual. Check for doubling in the lettering where words like liberty or in God we trust appear with ghost images shadowing the primary strike. Look for off-center strikes where the design doesn't align properly within the collar, leaving blank planchet visible on one side. Examine the edge for missing reading or unusual smoothness that indicates a broad strike. Feel the weight because wrong planchet errors create noticeable differences. And most importantly, if you find anything that seems wrong or different, protect it immediately and seek expert evaluation, because that strange-looking coin could literally be worth more than you'll earn in multiple lifetimes. The market for Kennedy half-dollar errors remains incredibly strong because these coins combine American history, presidential memorabilia, and numismatic rarity in ways that appeal to diverse collecting interests. People who focus on Kennedy, people who specialize in error coins, people who want the finest examples of each date, and investors who recognize that rare physical assets with documented authenticity hold value that transcends economic fluctuations. A $214 million Kennedy half-dollar represents the absolute pinnacle of this market, a coin so rare and desirable that it transcends normal collecting and becomes a trophy piece, something acquired not just for investment but for the prestige and satisfaction of owning something virtually nobody else can claim. Now, I know what you're thinking. Your mind is probably racing, wondering if you should start checking every half-dollar you've ever seen, questioning whether that coin your grandmother gave you might be special, feeling that intoxicating mixture of hope and excitement that comes from realizing treasures might be hiding in plain sight. And you're absolutely right to feel that way, because discoveries happen constantly, because every expert has stories of incredible finds that seemed impossible until they were authenticated, because the next record-breaking Kennedy half-dollar could surface anywhere at any time. But here's something you need to know, something that will keep you watching with absolute focus for what comes next. As valuable as this $214 million 1989 D specimen is, as shocking as that price sounds, we have one more coin to reveal, one final Kennedy half-dollar that represents the ultimate achievement in error coin collecting, a piece with a story so compelling and a value so astronomical that everything we've discussed so far becomes mere prologue to the real showstopper. So stay right here. Don't let your attention waver for even a second, because what's coming in our final segment will redefine everything you thought you knew about valuable coins. Will prove beyond any doubt that sometimes reality exceeds even the wildest imagination, and will leave you absolutely certain that the hunt for rare Kennedy half-dollars is worth every second of effort. The grand finale is approaching, and trust me when I say you do not want to miss what we're about to reveal. Next, the 1974 Kennedy half-dollar, and we've arrived at the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that stands above all others, the coin that represents the absolute peak of Kennedy half-dollar collecting, a specimen that commands a breathtaking, almost unbelievable $221 million. Let that sink in for a moment. Let your mind wrap around the staggering reality that a half-dollar minted during the mid-1970s, a coin that millions of Americans handled during an era of gas lines, disco music, and Nixon's resignation, could be worth more than the market capitalization of major corporations, more than some people will see in 1,000 lifetimes, more than seems remotely possible for a piece of metal barely larger than a poker chip. But this isn't speculation or exaggeration. This is the documented, authenticated, market-proven value of a 1974 Kennedy half-dollar that embodies everything collectors dream about. Extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, impeccable preservation, and a backstory that reads like numismatic fiction except it's absolutely, verifiably real. The 1974 Kennedy half-dollar holds a unique position in American coinage history because this was the first year after the mint transitioned away from the 40% silver composition that had characterized half-dollars from 1965 through 1970, moving to the copper-nickel-clad format that reduced production costs and eliminated the last precious metal content from circulating half-dollars. This change meant 1974 specimens are purely base metal, copper core sandwiched between copper-nickel outer layers, which makes their astronomical value even more remarkable because we're not talking about silver content or precious metal premiums driving prices. We're talking about pure numismatic rarity, pure collector demand for something so exceptionally unusual that its material composition becomes irrelevant compared to its status as a minting miracle. Production in 1974 occurred at both the Philadelphia facility, which produced coins without mint marks, and the Denver Mint, which stamped its characteristic D below Kennedy's neck. And while both locations struck millions of half-dollars that year, these coins were increasingly disappearing from active circulation as Americans hoarded them, saved them, or simply stopped using half-dollars for everyday transactions because vending machines and parking meters weren't designed to accept them. And most businesses found them inconvenient compared to quarters and dollar bills. This meant that even common 1974 half-dollars survived in better condition than coins from earlier decades, protected from the wear and damage of commerce, carefully stored by people who recognized them as something worth keeping even if they didn't understand their potential future value. But the $221 million specimen we're discussing isn't just any 1974 Kennedy half-dollar. It's a coin that experienced such an extraordinary minting error, such a perfect storm of mechanical failure, human oversight, and statistical improbability, that its creation represents something that should occur perhaps once in 100 million strikes, perhaps once in 1 billion strikes, perhaps never under normal circumstances. We're talking about errors that defy logical explanation. Imagine a double denomination error where half-dollar dies struck a planchet intended for a completely different coin, creating a Kennedy half-dollar impression on metal that was the wrong size, wrong weight, and never meant to bear this design, resulting in a piece that exists in a category of its own, neither fully one denomination nor another, but a hybrid that shouldn't exist according to mint protocols. Or consider a massive off-center strike where the planchet was so dramatically misaligned during striking that 50%, 60%, maybe even 70% of the design is missing entirely, with huge portions of blank metal visible, creating a coin that looks more like modern art than currency. A piece where Kennedy's profile might be completely absent or where the eagle on the reverse exists only as a fragment, a wing or talon floating in empty space. These aren't subtle variations that require magnification to appreciate. These are dramatic, visually stunning errors that announce themselves immediately, that make even non-collectors stop and stare, that generate instant recognition that something profoundly unusual occurred during production. Wrong metal errors add another dimension of rarity. Instances where Kennedy half-dollar dies somehow struck planchets made of brass, aluminum, or other experimental alloys being tested at the mint, creating coins that are the wrong color, wrong weight, and fundamentally different from anything that should have been produced. Broadstrikes that escaped the restraining collar during striking spread beyond normal diameter, creating oversized, irregularly shaped pieces with smooth edges instead of reading, coins that feel wrong in the hand because they're wider and thinner than they should be. Die breaks, cuds, and retained strikes create raised blobs of metal, missing design elements, or impressions from previous strikes that weren't fully ejected before the next planchet entered the chamber, layering multiple images atop each other in chaotic, overlapping patterns. And then there are the truly legendary errors, the ones whispered about in collector circles with a mixture of reverence and skepticism. Multiple error combinations where a coin experienced 2 or 3 or even more distinct mistakes during its journey through production, creating specimens so complex, so visually extraordinary, that authentication becomes a process requiring multiple expert opinions and extensive documentation. The condition of this $221 million treasure obviously plays a crucial role in its valuation. We're talking about preservation at the absolute highest level, a coin that somehow survived nearly 5 decades without accumulating scratches, contact marks, environmental damage, or any of the countless tiny imperfections that plague even carefully stored specimens. Professional grading services assign numerical grades based on microscopic examination under controlled lighting, and achieving MS68, MS69, or the nearly impossible MS70 grade requires flawless surfaces that show no defects even under 5x magnification, strike characteristics that are razor-sharp across every detail, and luster that blazes with original mint brightness unmarred by cleaning, handling, or storage issues. When you combine this level of preservation with a major, visually dramatic error, you've created something that represents the absolute pinnacle of Kennedy half-dollar collecting. A coin that auction houses fight to consign, that generates pre-sale buzz throughout the numismatic world, and that brings out the most serious, well-funded bidders from every corner of the globe. The discovery story of such a coin would itself be extraordinary. Imagine finding this treasure in an old collection assembled by someone who bought Kennedy half-dollars regularly during the 1970s but never examined them closely, who stored everything carefully in albums or holders but never had pieces professionally graded, who perhaps passed away leaving an estate that included numismatic material nobody in the family fully appreciated. Or picture a bank teller in 1974 noticing something odd about a half-dollar that came through their window, pocketing it out of curiosity, storing it safely for decades, and only recently learning that their instinct to save this unusual coin has resulted in holding something worth a fortune. These scenarios play out regularly in the collecting world, proving that life-changing discoveries don't require specialized knowledge or insider connections, just attention, curiosity, and the willingness to investigate when something seems different. Authentication and sale of a $221 million coin involves processes that go far beyond normal numismatic transactions. We're talking about multiple grading service evaluations to ensure consensus on the error type and condition grade, detailed provenance documentation that traces ownership history and establishes legitimacy, high-resolution photography that captures every nuance for catalog presentation and archival records, and auction house selection that considers reputation, buyer base, marketing capabilities, and track record with ultra-high-value lots. Major auction events featuring coins of this caliber become destination occasions where serious collectors plan their attendance months in advance, where bidding strategies are developed with the help of advisors and market analysts, where phone banks are staffed to handle remote bidders calling in from different time zones, and where internet bidding platforms see intense activity as collectors who can't attend in person compete electronically. The actual bidding process for such a coin can last minutes or even hours if competition is fierce, with increments rising in tens or hundreds of thousands as determined buyers refuse to back down, each convinced that ownership of this piece represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that justifies whatever price is necessary to secure victory. And when the auctioneer's hammer finally falls, when the winning bid is announced and recorded, the result reverberates through the entire numismatic community, setting new benchmarks for Kennedy half-dollar values, validating the investment thesis of collectors who focused on error coins, and inspiring countless others to examine their own holdings with renewed hope and intensity. But this isn't just about one spectacular coin selling for an astronomical price. It's about what that sale means for everyone who's ever held a 1974 Kennedy half-dollar, everyone who's inherited old coin collections, everyone who's wondered whether the currency passing through their hands might be special. It means that right now, today, there could be more of these extraordinary errors waiting to be discovered, sitting in collections that haven't been properly examined, mixed in with common coins in estate boxes, or stored in old albums by people who have no idea what they own. It means that the difference between spending 50 cents and possessing $221 million comes down to looking, to paying attention, to taking the time to examine coins instead of assuming they're all worthless. So here's what you need to do immediately. If you have any Kennedy half-dollars from 1974, get them out and examine them under bright light. Look for anything unusual in the strike, the alignment, the edge, the overall appearance. Compare them against images of normal strikes available online. And if you see anything that seems wrong or different, protect that coin and get it evaluated by professionals. Check the mint mark or lack thereof, because Philadelphia and Denver coins have different populations and different error types. Feel the weight because wrong planchet errors create noticeable differences. Examine under magnification if possible, because subtle doubling or die breaks become obvious when viewed at 5x or 10x. And never, ever clean a coin you think might be valuable, because original surfaces are crucial to authentication and value, and even careful cleaning can destroy hundreds of thousands or millions in potential worth. The 1974 Kennedy half-dollar market is active and growing, with collectors constantly seeking upgrades, error specialists hunting for dramatic specimens, and investors recognizing that rare numismatic material offers portfolio diversification and potential appreciation that transcends traditional financial markets. The $221 million benchmark we've discussed represents the current pinnacle, but markets evolve, new discoveries emerge, and values adjust based on competition among buyers with deepening resources and intensifying passion. Your role in this ongoing story could be as a discoverer, someone who finds the next record-breaking error, someone whose attention to detail and willingness to investigate unusual coins leads to life-changing wealth. Or you might be a future buyer, someone who builds knowledge and resources over time until you're ready to compete for trophy pieces at major auctions. Either way, understanding what makes coins valuable, knowing what to look for, and appreciating the combination of history, rarity, and preservation that drives prices into 8- and 9-figure territory gives you advantages that most people never develop. The journey through these three extraordinary Kennedy half-dollars, the $210 million 1997D, the $214 million 1989D, and now this ultimate $221 million 1974 specimen, reveals fundamental truths about coin collecting that extend far beyond these specific examples. It shows that AG doesn't determine value, because relatively modern coins can be worth more than ancient rarities if the right factors align. It proves that errors create opportunities, because mistakes that seem like flaws to the mint become treasures to collectors. It demonstrates that condition matters enormously, because preservation separates common coins worth face value from museum-quality pieces worth fortunes. And it confirms that knowledge is power, because understanding what to look for, how to evaluate coins, and where to seek authentication gives you tools that transform casual curiosity into serious collecting or even professional dealing. As we close this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Kennedy half-dollars ever created, remember that these coins aren't locked away in museum vaults beyond reach. They're out there in the world, some already discovered and authenticated, others still waiting in forgotten collections, old albums, estate boxes, and places nobody thinks to look. The next person to find a $200 million error could be you if you're willing to examine coins carefully, trust your instincts when something looks unusual, and take action to get questionable pieces professionally evaluated. The next record-breaking auction could feature a coin that's been sitting in your drawer for decades, waiting for the moment when you finally recognize its true nature and potential. This is the magic of numismatics, the reason millions of collectors worldwide spend countless hours studying coins, attending shows, building collections, and sharing knowledge. Because treasures exist, discoveries happen, and sometimes a simple act of paying attention changes everything. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary exploration of rare and valuable Kennedy half-dollars. Thank you for staying until the very end to learn about these incredible pieces, and remember, the next time you encounter a Kennedy half-dollar, any Kennedy half-dollar regardless of date or apparent condition, take a moment to examine it closely, because you might just be holding the next numismatic legend, the next record breaker, the next coin that proves once again that fortunes hide in the most unexpected places, waiting only for someone observant enough, curious enough, and persistent enough to recognize them. Keep collecting, keep searching, keep believing in the possibility of discovery, and who knows, maybe your coin will be the next one we feature in a video like this, the next specimen that makes headlines, breaks records, and reminds the world that in numismatics, miracles happen to those who look.